So we were just chatting briefly about some of the social media trends, and you were very open last time we spoke about PD usage in powerlifting, but also like in bodybuilding. I mean, obviously, it's something that is very rampant at the professional level. And one thing we are seeing, like I just saw a couple of videos put out on Sam Sulek, and he seems to be like the big trend these days. I actually don't know a ton about him other than that he's very young. I believe he's maybe 21, 22, something around there.
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys, it's one of those things where I feel like as much as people might say you shouldn't do X, Y, Z, same thing with women, whether it's plastic surgery or certain trends and whatnot. You can say it, but you can't prevent people from seeing the response that these people get. You can tell people, hey, don't do this thing. But if you are a teenager who wants more attention and you see that these people who are taking performance enhancing drugs get that response, you're going to have an influence. So I just wanted to get some of your opinion on Sam specifically, but just the kind of that general trend we are seeing with younger and younger people.
That's something that I worry about with my daughters, man. They're 3.5 years old, and I'm thinking they may know that, dad and mom have like taught me right, but the allure of something might they might have to fail and try it out, unfortunately. And I hate that, but everyone has free will. Everyone has to make their choice. So, man, it's like one of those shiny object things, man. It's like, even though some of these kids might have a good head on their shoulders, they see how much attention someone's getting on Instagram, or like more lately since COVID, TikTok or YouTube, someone blow up and they'll sell their whole life out just to try to get popular on YouTube. Someone that comes to mind when we talk about that is what's the dude's name that passed away in the last year? The
Joe Linder.
team 3CCs or
Oh,
whatever.
Boston Lloyd.
So that was someone that a blind person saw that one coming, right? Going back 10 years ago when he was like blasting all this stuff, and he was on dialysis just a year or two ago, and he was talking about the amount of gear he was still taking. Like he was
Yeah.
like more than like my running cycles when I was pushing towards a world record. And he's like, oh, this is just HRT basically. And Palumbo is like, what? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
that's not HRT. You would call him out on it. But nonetheless, people like Sam Sulek, do you know how many people I've seen come and go like that in the last 20 years? Like
Hmm.
someone pop up, they're going to be the next bodybuilder. Like we've seen it a lot with bodybuilding and powerlifting and strongman. And they do one or two shows, they do really well. They get hurt, they may get sick, or life takes over, and then they're gone just as soon as they've come about. So it's hard to get people to like not follow what this dude is eating or this girl is lifting or what exercise they're doing. But it's just things are popular now with our phones. And so someone that doesn't know better can easily get sucked into doing one of the latest trends and whatever someone like Sam Sulek may be doing right now as far as gear dosage and nutrition and training. I mean, I see a lot of people for their back. Okay. I see a lot of people for people who've hurt their back with too much intensity, too much volume, too much frequency in their training. Very rarely do I ever see anybody for their back or for their lifting and say, you're not doing enough. You know what, Dave, you're not doing enough, man. We need to up your volume and your intensity, your frequency. You know how often I have to say that to someone that's injured?
Hmm.
Hardly ever. I have occasionally some lethargic uh, men and women that have lost their zest for life, and then you got to get them off the couch. They eat too much. But for the most part, everyone's overdoing it. Even when this person starts exercising and doing therapy, quote unquote, they start doing too much. They go from doing nothing to doing too much. So we're a country of doing too much, I think. We are beating things to death. And a lot of people be well served to not try to mimic someone like Sam and just start with the least effective dose. But these people have to learn the hard way, it seems. Some of them.
Yeah, I think ultimately, and this just goes for life lessons, I think ultimately you get what you incentivize. And you look at the professional bodybuilding stage, right? And people would talk about, well, you're getting these bloated guts and you're getting these less aesthetic physiques. But it's like, well, yeah, but those people are winning. And the people who have the biggest, the most freak factor are winning. And it really wasn't until they actually made a whole new division, right? They actually made the classic physique that you
Yeah.
kind of got that to change a little bit. But again, you're incentivizing it by rewarding it. And in this day and age, I think yeah, social media following and the clout and the attention for sure is
Yeah.
going to be something that most people look at as a positive. Again, generally younger generation, but people who want to go into that or think that they want that as their lifestyle. I really don't know if that's something that, it's kind of hard to put that back in the box, right? Once it's out. So I don't really know what a solution there is.
Well, it's like the people that I knew that when they started eating raw liver, I knew exactly why they
Yeah.
were doing that.
Right, right.
I'm like, huh. I said, where did you get this from? Please tell me it's not Liver King. Please tell me that your wife got you into this or something. Because there's definitely some benefits to eating organ meat. We're not going to deny that. But if the funny thing about that is these people that are like stuffing down raw liver every day,
Yeah.
if they really think that's going to take them to the next level, bro, I don't know I don't even know how to react to that. If they really think that's all they're missing is eating some raw liver daily to take them to the next level, they were thinking it was going to have some kind of special growth hormone secretion and like take an anadrol and like tren at the same time just because you eat raw liver. Unfortunately, it's a little, it's not going to happen, right? That's not going to be what takes someone to the next level. With that said, you got to watch some people fail sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You just got to
sure.
kind of sit back and say, okay, how's the liver going? Oh, it tastes terrible. I don't think it would have done very much for you. You could take some liver tabs or still get the nutrients from somewhere else, or you could not worry about the liver and get better sleep and eat better in general, go out for a walk every day. And that could be a good start instead of stuffing liver down your face, for lunch.
Well, I think also a lot of people don't see necessarily the high dropout rate. I mean, this goes for a lot of things. Like I'm pretty into watching mixed martial arts, and people will see
Yeah.
people at the top, but it's like, well, hey, you're not seeing the dozens and dozens of people. I mean, probably the 98% of people who try and fail. And when it comes to performance enhancing drugs, the reality is there's a lot of people that don't talk about the health detriments that they went through that kind of caused them to stop along the way. And so you're really not seeing that. And partly it's people who just don't have big followings. Partly it could be due to embarrassment that you kind of screwed yourself over. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but you're not necessarily seeing those failures unless you have actual deaths, like you mentioned with Boston Lloyd or some of these other people.
There's been a lot of bodybuilders that have passed away in the last couple of years, more than I remember from like if you could look back, I know you're a fan of bodybuilding and fighting, so that's perfect because look back and think about in the early 2000s and the teens, how many bodybuilders you remember from that era dropping dead. I mean, we still have the guys from the late 90s and early 2000s that are Dorian, Lee. I mean, Ronnie's a different topic because he's from an orthopedic standpoint
Yeah.
mangled, right? But his organs seem to be doing okay. I saw a video of Jay the other day stripping his shirt off for his 50th birthday, and he's almost got he doesn't have the hair he did when he was in his 20s, but he still has a full head of hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing that he's been able to manage that. Um, I think things are different now, man. It's a lot easier to get drugs.
Yeah.
So people can find a source somewhere and they can hammer it. Whereas before in the 90s and 2000s, it wasn't prevalent. Not every person was making underground gear like they have been the last 20 years. Like it's changed a bit. So now you can have a dumb 20-year-old like me slam a whole bottle and say, well, I can just get another one for $10 or $20 or whatever. I can sell one to my friend and then it'll pay for mine so I can experiment and slam this whole bottle of Prop and see what happens tomorrow. So I think the availability has changed things too, and stupid ideas on the internet in general.
Mm.
Like we were talking about, like Reddit, people talking about what they've tried, and these old steroid forums that I used to be a part of in the early 2000s. Steroid Super Board was one of them, and everyone would talk about the things that they were trying and whatnot. And yeah, it's an interesting time.
Yeah.
A lot of bodybuilders have died, not so many strongmen or powerlifters.
Yeah, I do find that very interesting. So part of it, you could say, well, it's just we have so much social media now that you're just going to hear about it. Like, hey, maybe people were dying before and you just didn't hear about it. But to
Yeah,
your point, it usually seems to be people involved with bodybuilding. And I don't know that much about strongman, but I would imagine that the doses these guys are using have to be similarly high, I would guess. Maybe though they're not using the diuretics as much, and maybe,
true.
probably not using as much insulin, I would guess. I'm not sure. So things like that maybe are not as harmful, but I'm not sure. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I guess there could be a point, especially with the strongmen, the cardiovascular aspect. A lot of these guys are in really good shape, even though
Mm,
like a half Thor or Shaw are well over 6 foot, 6 foot eight-ish and 440 pounds. But I'm not saying their heart isn't enlarged and it's not unhealthy, but they got good cardio. Like they
mm,
can carry a yoke for 50 yards, no problem, and turn around and throw kegs over their head and then do whatever they need to do. So I think they're a little bit more cardiovascularly fit, even though they look like they're a lot more unhealthy because they have a belly, they don't have the six pack, but they're also not taking a shitload of diuretics and then cutting down and not drinking for 2 days, then flexing as hard as they can for 2 hours at a time. I think
right,
that,
right, right.
the drugs are bad and all those things, but when you start dehydrating someone,
Yeah.
like what happened to Ronnie Coleman, I think it was in 2000, where they're about to have to take him to the ER, but
Yeah.
instead he
I know.
drank a
Yeah.
whole gallon of water and he kind of came
Right.
back. But yeah, that to me is the most dangerous aspect of it, is the diuretics.